Thunder Grunt.
Hey guys!
Bob!
Hey, Bob.
We are Writers Blockbusters, the show that treats the final edit of a movie like it's a script. And today, we're going to go around the table and introduce ourselves.
I am Jimmy George. I am a screenwriter and script consultant, and my Twitter handle is @JimmyRGeorge.
I am JB Nash, screenwriter. My Twitter handle is @Jamie_Nash.
And I'm Bob Rose. I'm @ThunderGruntBob, and I am a god. Oh, today,
Not the God.
not the god, maybe. But yeah, today we're going to talk about Groundhog Day.
Yes.
Which, if you're listening to this, is probably about, a month back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Super
timing
Bowl. It
was a
Super
little
Bowl.
off
Timing's a little off.
of
but
this episode.
we can't always time everything, but this doesn't matter. This is
Yeah.
a great script and a great movie we want to
Classic.
talk about,
Yeah.
right?
One of my favorites, personally.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like I've seen it
I haven't seen it.
100 times.
Never.
What?
Jamie's just
Not
gonna
even for
shoot
this
from the
episode?
hip.
No.
Just guess what we're talking
Just
about.
Okay.
make it up.
Yeah, it's fine. Just you kind of know. He's seen Edge of Tomorrow, and he's going to
There you
reverse,
go.
Is
or-
this the one
Happy
where
Death
Bill Murray
Day.
works on the golf course?
Yes.
Okay.
Same director.
Hey, he's got an animal in it.
Yeah.
that
It's got some kind of little groundhog in the. Yeah, I don't know. So,
I mean, there is two really famous movies with rodents and Bill Murray.
Yes.
Directed by Hal Ramis.
That's true.
So let's just say that. Anyway, Jamie, who wrote this shit?
who wrote this shit? Sponsored by Pepsi. No,
I'm sure he's going to say the names wrong. Just
I don't. It's funny now. I question Danny Rubin.
Mhm.
Or maybe it's Rubin. Yeah.
Rubin.
And drum roll. I just want to make sure nobody else got some weird credit, but I was
Yeah.
pretty sure Harold Ramis was the other one.
Yes.
That I never heard of him, but
Yeah, who's that guy?
Yeah, some
Never-
fucking
never heard
dude.
of
Who
him.
cares?
and
Just kidding.
and this movie started with Danny Rubin as a spec, and it was very different than the movie you ended up seeing,
Mhm.
which we'll kind of talk about as we go through.
Yeah,
I think
Yeah.
as
it'll
much
bleed
as
into
we,
the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then Harold Ramis came on board to do a rewrite, and they collaborated on the rewrite to the point where Harold Ramis actually got credit on the rewrite. So he brought a lot of ideas to the thing as well.
Enough that they decided he was. he
I don't
deserved
remember the
soul.
spec sale, or there's a book. Danny
Yeah.
Rubin wrote a book like How to Write Groundhog Day, I think it was called.
Yeah, I wish I should have wrote down the title.
And-
I have it.
Yeah, I have it on Kindle.
It's
I
just
think.
an ebook. They
Yeah.
never made a physical copy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
just
okay.
an
Yeah.
I
ebook.
didn't
It's
know
like $5.
Yeah,
so.
and it's actually really good if you like this movie.
Mhm.
It tells about the whole development, the various drafts, all that kind of
inform some choices, things like
Yep.
that. Yeah,
It's
very
really
instructive.
stuff. Very, very writer interesting if you
Yeah.
want to check it out.
I probably am going to do that.
Yeah.
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 You'll learn everything you needed to know about Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Danny Rubin really hasn't done a whole lot since then. It was
Kind of
like,
peaked.
yeah, he wrote like
Yeah.
I'm
Man,
I'm pretty
that's
sure-
a bummer.
I'm pretty
Dude,
sure
if I wrote Groundhog Day, I'd be like, all right, I'm just
I'm
going to
done.
retire. It's fine.
I'm pretty sure this movie ends up on the list of greatest screenplays of all time or something.
I think it's on the National Film Registry.
Mhm.
Roger Ebert made it one of
One of
his
the
great
great
movies, quote unquote. So it's had its day in the sun.
Yeah.
It's for a comedy especially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what he did after this. So first credit on IMDb is Groundhog Day. The next one is
Wow.
Hear No Evil.
Here,
Do you
no.
remember-
Evil.
do you
Oh,
remember
yeah,
Hear-
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
remember.
Okay.
That was the same year. He gets a story credit. Then it was SFW.
Oh yeah,
Do you
yeah.
remember that
I do
one?
remember
I don't-
that one.
I don't
yeah.
remember that one.
Yeah,
I don't
that was
know
like
why.
a '90s stoner. Yeah,
That was
I remember it. Like a
1994.
workplace kind of thing.
Oh yeah, now I
yeah.
do remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then he did
Does it
something
stand
called.
for Stay for Work?
Safe for work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then he did something called Stork Day.
Hmm.
No wait. Well, here's the weird thing. I'd have to look up Stork Day.
These are
'cause
getting less impressive as you go here.
it says screenplay of Groundhog Day in it, so it's almost like suggests that like Groundhog Day plays
in the
inside the
movie, and
movie.
so they credit him. That's
I'd have
weird.
to. I'm not going to click on the link.
Okay.
But I don't know what Stork Day is. Sounds like
Okay.
something. Sounds like a movie Arnold would have been in back in the
Stork
day.
Day.
I'm the stork.
He delivering babies.
Exactly.
Right.
I
Yeah.
deliver the babies.
Right.
And then
What's that? I want to see that movie.
Yeah, I watched that.
and then he did a TV miniseries called Our Own Devices
Interesting.
in 2018.
Oh,
So
so
and it says
not.
it says he wrote 5 of those episodes. I don't know what that is either.
Oh, he's still
Man.
working.
And most
Man.
importantly, he was in Freaky Friday, the movie with the Lindsay Lohan Freaky Friday,
Jamie Lee Curtis.
and he played Scott, the bass player.
Okay.
Just in case. You
Okay.
don't want to get a visual.
I mean, most
Man.
people go through this life without ever doing anything great.
Oh yeah.
oh,
if you-
absolutely.
So, like, Groundhog Day is enough for me to go, well
Oh,
done, dude.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
If
trust
we
me,
should
if
be
I
so lucky.
if I was Scott, the bass player in Freaky
Happy
Friday,
Friday.
yeah, that would
be
be enough.
If I wrote Stork Day, I'd feel great.
That would
Yeah.
be that would be in my obituary for sure.
Right.
It would be Scott, the bass
Is he-
player.
Question: is there anything like do the like writers of Edge of Tomorrow or Happy Death Day have to give like a
Nah.
No.
It's
any
a,
Inspiro type of
because
thing?
here's the thing.
Because it's a
that,
premise thing
That premise has been told
and other stuff.
way before Groundhog.
I would-
Yeah.
What would
There's
have?
a Twilight Zone episode.
Is there a Twilight Zone?
Yeah, with
I know-
William Shatner.
I remember Star Trek did one. The
I
Next
hate-
Generation.
It annoys me that people bring up 50 First Dates in this because that is not the same to me
No, not at all.
at all. People always bring up that.
So interesting.
Yeah.
There's some book, I forget what it's called. It's from the 40s that essentially is a guy getting stuck in a town. It's like it's called Double and Again or
Well,
something like that. I can't remember.
I read. Now I just. You
So
know,
anyway,
I
the
read that
premise has been used.
he was
before
accused
this.
of stealing this.
Who was?
Danny Rubin.
He was.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's in the IMDb trivia that he was
He
accused.
left that out of
stealing
his book.
it. Yeah, I'm just going by
I don't know.
IMDb trivia.
He
but
might have not left it out of his
he
book.
was
I just don't
accused,
remember.
and then he said no, I didn't steal it from anything. It was my
From
idea.
a specific source.
There was, I
Like
think,
the-
a foreign film
like
that
the-
had a very similar premise. So,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
but he said that's great minds think alike type of a deal.
I think the movie was called Stork Day.
It's sort of.
No, but the Twilight Zone episode isn't the same exact premise.
Yeah,
it's
right.
more he gets stuck in a town and then he returns to the same spot and it's the situation is repeating itself. It's not exactly the,
The same.
but it's one of the early Twilight Zone episodes.
Well, before we move on, what was the box office on Groundhog Day?
No, it wasn't like crazy huge blockbuster.
This is a
but
movie that's like made its popularity like through the
absolutely
ads, right? Yeah,
When it came out, I remember it kind of being shrug-worthy in some ways
It looks fine.
by the general audience.
Trailer was
Like,
awful.
I don't think
It
tons
really
of
was.
people went out to check it out.
Isn't the suicide heavily in the trailer?
Really?
like
Really?
I'm pretty
Oh, is
sure
it? I don't
there's
remember.
like
Driving off the
like
cliff or
30
something.
seconds of the trailer is him killing himself
Just-
over and over
it's like,
again.
yeah.
It's a hard one to really market. Yeah.
So it's
Back then, yeah.
yeah.
it's 70 million. It made 70 million domestic, and it doesn't have international numbers. So it just says 70 million worldwide. Like it didn't come out anywhere else ever.
Interesting.
They don't have Groundhog Day in like,
Oh
Japan or
yeah,
something.
would it play? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Just like they changed the name to my film that I made with Chris, President's Day in other countries to Axe Massacre.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Because nobody knew what
President's Day
was.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a budget on this, but you could imagine the budget back then, 10 million, 12 million for something like this, maybe. I don't know.
It's a mid-budget movie.
Mid-budget.
yeah.
Nowadays, of course, it'd be like 50 million or something for the
Right.
same thing. So it made money. It did okay. It just wasn't like the groundbreaking,
It didn't
Didn't kill
land
it.
with a punch
right
at
right,
first. Yeah.
Right.
It took a minute.
I don't think I knew that.
it's
Yeah, I didn't.
I,
legacy.
I didn't know that really either.
Its legacy is much bigger than its box office.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, that makes
How about
sense.
that? Yeah.
Because it's an unassuming movie.
It's not a
Yeah, it's not a movie that it doesn't look like something that's out of the ordinary for its time. It looks like a light comedy from the 90s that,
Mhm. Yeah.
I love a lot of those movies, but that people don't like look
They
back
didn't-
on fucking.
Oh my god, it was bursting through the
Yeah,
blowing off the doors of the cinemas.
like Down and Out in Beverly Hills, man. That's you know what I mean? Like they're not. like Captain Ron. Oh my God!
You gotta remember
what I
Captain
mean?
Ron.
Right? They're not. It's not. It seems like it fits in that category, but it's
low
not.
stakes.
Strangely, when you bring out Down and Out in Beverly Hills, like I remember that being kind of a movie everybody wanted to go see. Groundhog Day, not too much.
Right.
You know, I remember.
I mean, I love Down and Out in Beverly Hills.
Just to give you a quick feel, though, and this actually, it sounds like we're downplaying it, but it was actually number 12 in 1993.
Oh, okay.
So it didn't, that's pretty damn good.
Yes.
That's the year of Jurassic Park
It's
and Schindler's List.
It's better than I remember as far as money goes.
Where
as far as
where
the
it
spot.
stood at the end of the year.
Yeah, just to give you a few that were around it. Dave was 13, right
Okay.
behind it. Free Willy was actually right ahead of it.
Okay.
At number 11.
I remember that being huge.
Yeah, 77 million. So it only made 7 million more.
Mess with Free
10%
Willy.
more.
Yeah.
A Few Good Men, 78. I remember that being kind of huge that
movie.
summer.
Yeah.
Cliffhanger at
Oh,
84, number 9. This one kind of shocks me. Aladdin at 99 at number 8.
All the way down there.
Yeah. Now,
I would assume
worldwide,
above 5 on that one.
Yeah.
worldwide, Aladdin made a ton of money, but I would have thought, top 5.
Domestic, it would have.
In the Line of Fire, 102 million.
I remember that.
I remember that being pretty hot.
Big one.
Indecent Proposal, number 6 at 106.
Yes, I remember that.
You can't beat that premise for a box office receipt.
Yeah.
With
the people in it.
Yeah, you just can't.
Miss Doubtfire at 109.
Okay.
Uh,
That's number 3?
That's number 5.
Number 5, okay.
Sleepless in Seattle at 126. The Firm at 158. Tom Cruise has 2 movies there, I guess.
Wow.
Great porn title, too.
Yep. The Fugitive, 176, and Jurassic Park at 338.
Yeah. 338.
Wow.
There you go. That's your rundown. 1993.
See, like,
1993.
It's funny when, time is the best, judge. But you would have think Groundhog Day now, you would think if you look back, it would be higher than that.
Just because it's
so
inspired
revered now.
so many new movies.
We're like, 6 days away from the Super Bowl commercial that just happened.
Yeah.
And the reason that commercial works is because everyone worships this movie.
Yeah,
right.
It's so well known and beloved. Yes,
the quirks of it can be used to market.
I mean, think
something.
about how many movies have come that were inspired by that.
Yeah.
By Groundhog Day. It's the
Well, I can think of
Groundhog Day
3.
meets this.
I can think of 3.
I mean, Happy Death Day comes
1
to
and 2.
mind.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Source Code.
Source Code.
Source Code. Yeah. You're right.
There's
probably like
a
some
whole host. There's probably 30 or 40 on Wikipedia.
I'm sure there's a Nickelodeon something.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Disney or whatever. I'm sure.
Tweet us all the ones we forgot that you're angry
idiots.
that we didn't say. Yeah, right. You're
What
forgetting this. Do not say 50 First Dates.
It's not that.
It's not that.
Was romantic comedy kind of like that too? Did you see that with Rebel Wilson?
There's one on
Oh, no,
Netflix.
Isn't It
with
Romantic?
Adam...
Isn't it romantic? Yeah. I think it kind of had that.
Did it keep restarting though?
I think it.
There's a
I don't know.
Futurama episode I think that's similar to the Groundhog Day too.
Okay.
But it's using that premise as a joke.
Screenwriting.
Yeah, screenwriting, right. But we're development hell, right? Are we still want to talk about that, or we want to keep doing as we go?
I think we can mix it in as we go.
Okay, we'll mix it in as we go.
Well, let's talk about
At
Bill
least
Murray's
that part.
character, reverse rooting influencers.
So this wasn't originally on the talking points, but as I was studying the first act, I thought we got to bring this up.
Yep.
So for anyone who hasn't heard us talk about this before, there is a teacher named David S. Freeman, and he had a seminar where he taught these things called rooting influencers. And they're basically, you front load them when you introduce a character, and they're the things that make us empathize with a main character of a story or a supporting character, depending on the use. But for instance, in Joker, we found 20 rooting influencer techniques in the first 15 pages.
Listen to our episode on it.
Answered a lot of the reasons why, despite what a dark, disturbing character he is, why a lot of audiences are able to connect with him. So, and then we did Back to the Future, and we showed how Biff, every one of his qualities is an inverse of those rooting influencer techniques, and that's why we suddenly hate him and root against him.
Kick the cat as opposed to save the cat.
Kick the cat.
Kill the cat.
There's a kick the cat in this, basically.
Yeah.
That's
Jamie,
on the,
right?
that's
Kick
on
the
the
cat.
Kill the cat.
I guess it would be kill the cat.
Kill the cat.
Yeah,
kill
we
the cat.
kill the cat. Don't
Yeah.
kill the cat. This one is weird. I was looking for the positives, and then when I tracked them, they're all like extremely negative. They're like Biff. And I think looking at this before I'm gonna list 10.
Okay.
For me, this unlocks why I personally feel such a powerful change by the story's end.
Because the movie's about him reversing his influencers, right?
It's so many things.
Because you
that
could
are
go to the
reversed.
end.
It's not just like a single arc. There's all these things about him.
But couldn't you
that
go to the
change.
end and find all the rooting influencers?
And that's what I'm saying. It reverses
it
these.
reverses them. Yeah.
And I had no idea. So this is the first time we've seen something like that where our main character is like, you don't get the rooting influencers, you get the opposite. Okay, so one rooting influencer technique is our character is an every woman thinks of themselves as an underdog.
Prima
Phil,
donnas.
he says, keep the talent happy, right?
Yeah.
Your character, another rooting influencer technique is your character is warm and authentic. He's sarcastic, condescending, and like pretends to be enthusiastic about talking to people.
He's Bill Murray.
He's
Bill Murray. Yeah.
Thoughtful to others. He only thinks of himself.
Right.
Excluded outsider. Rita and Larry invite him multiple times to join them, and he's like, hell no. I want to be by myself. So he's like voluntarily becoming an outsider. Helps those less fortunate. I mean, the big moment we see him over and over walk past the homeless man, checking his pockets, acting like he's going to give him something.
Yeah.
Takes responsibility for their mistakes. He refuses to admit that he got the blizzard forecast wrong. Even when he's standing in the blizzard, he's like, it's going to pass us by. Loves animals. He calls the groundhog a rat. Like in the very first opening scenes. Others speak kindly about him. Larry says prima donna, and then Larry's like, did he just call himself the talent?
Right.
Chasing your character is chasing a higher goal or purpose. He literally just wants to be a weatherman at another station that gets higher ratings.
He wants to be more famous.
Yeah.
It's vapid. Yeah.
And yeah, so those are 10. And then by the end of the story, all of those, we get the reverse of that. That's like the rooting influencer technique. So to me, that just like really showed me.
What's really interesting about Groundhog Day, unlike like say Liar Liar. So Liar Liar sets up a character that's all equally selfish and has problems. However, they give you the one save the cat thing where he likes his son or he has a son that cares for him or something.
There's hope there.
There's some
Absolutely.
hope.
Yeah.
In this character, there really is no hope. There's zero hope. It's all bad, but it works, and I think it works partially because of casting.
I think so too.
Which, if you look at all like the info about the movie, it was hard to cast this part, and he. Ramis said like he's the only one not nice enough for this to work.
Yeah, I'm trying to scramble. Like I could see somebody like Tom Hanks just being so likable that he might be able to pull it off.
That was like the first choice. Then it was like, no, he's too nice.
And I could see, I mean, not as big, but I could see John Larroquette working in this role,
That
kind
could
of.
work.
You know, he's like that kind of guy.
I could see maybe Chevy Chase working.
Yeah, Chevy Chase
is a
He
dick.
can pull that off.
He's a dick, and it could work.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Chevy Chase will work.
But
So
even Ramis said he was too nice. He needed somebody that came. But like we've already talked about, Murray has that way of being a complete piece of garbage, and also you like him and want to hang out with him.
yeah.
Like he pulls this off perfectly.
Yeah.
So you don't think it's instructive for a writer
I
to
think it
take
could
that
be
approach
dangerous to do this. Do this approach
as a spec script?
Yeah, it would be hard to say reading this as a spec script, like what it would be like. This script is so weird and dark and different and stuff that it almost feels like it would be a popular like read. You know, it'd be like a Blacklist.
It does
kind
a
of
lot of weird things.
But you're saying without the marriage of like Ramis
Murray
and Bill Murray together,
to the
because they already have
material.
worked together and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
Without you remove that, it could go wrong.
You
It
wonder
could,
how it would just go on the page with nobody to
No,
attach
anchor it to. Yeah,
a lot of these like these kind of out of the bottle scripts, as Blake Snyder would call them, the kind of things that you have like a magic thing that happens and it's a curse or some power. Bruce Almighty, Liar
I was
Liar,
gonna say 30 Rock,
Scrooge.
30 Rock and Leap Year.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember
No,
that? They
I-
made fun of this type of movie
Okay.
on
Okay.
the show. Never mind. Forget it.
Freaky Friday.
Andy McDowell was in the parody on the
Oh,
show.
that's
Oh,
great.
yeah.
So a lot of these types of movies need to establish characters that need to be better people. It's the Scrooge aspect
It
of it.
absolutely is Scrooge. Yeah.
So
There's a lot of It's a Wonderful Life. Really, I see that almost.
Mhm.
yeah,
Most. Yeah.
And it's tricky I think it also works because their comedic tone.
They are.
So we
yeah.
watch these people like when Jim Carrey shows up or Adam Sandler and Click or whatever it is.
Rob Schneider is a
or whoever it is.
whatever.
And we're kind of like okay to see them be horrible for a little while. It's kind of fun to watch them be
We
horrible.
also kind of know the movie's gonna redeem them somehow, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. So
It might be harder if this was the drama dark version of it, I don't know that would be as fun.
I didn't anticipate him matching up with Biff when I watched.
really,
this.
I would have.
Yeah.
I already knew that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a surprise to me.
yeah.
And the fact that he that he becomes the hero that we love.
I always think of this movie as relentlessly breaking the rule of having an empathetic character.
Yeah.
I honestly think this is always my one go-to. That's like, this is why there's
it
no
works
rules.
well.
But I think
There
you
are
already
no
cracked
rules.
the code there, Jamie.
Yeah.
It's like it has to be Bill Murray for this to work.
I think
At
so.
this point in
I
his
think so.
career, we were already all sold on him,
His
so it
shtick.
eases you into. It would have worked. I think it could work with someone else.
Yeah.
but it really works with Bill
It really works with Bill Murray.
because he can be awful, and we're
So it's
we're
not
down.
really a screenwriting thing. Then it's a.
I
But
think
that's
in this
instructive
weird
to the
case-
fact that you
Yeah.
you write for actors, right?
It's true.
And
Sometimes
Howard Ramis probably came in and wrote for his actor,
Yeah.
right?
probably
He said
tweaked
that
it.
He
Yeah.
got the credit by coming in.
I
and
would be
helping.
interested
Yeah.
to see what the Danny Rubin draft was like
Yeah, if it was-
before.
Yeah,
If it was Charles Grodin playing this part,
that could be awesome.
yeah, it could be.
awesome.
Yeah.
You probably would
But
have to give
people
him
don't
some
like
hope.
him as much.
You probably have to give him that little glimmer of hope,
Yeah, you'd have
He
to
loves
give
his
him-
wife or something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah, yeah.
something.
Right.
Yeah,
Loves his kid. Right. Some humanity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Charles Grodin.
It was my first interesting observation in
Yeah.
many of this. Yeah.
I'm surprised at how surprised you are.
Oh
by
yeah,
it.
I didn't expect
You didn't.
it at
You didn't
all.
expect that.
Yeah. I expected the things that need fixing, but I didn't expect the things that need fixing to be so unlikable.
Well, isn't that also why the movie's considered so palpable and great? Is because it is like a massively blunt arc.
Yeah.
It's like
yeah.
how much more blunt can
And
one get?
unapologetically sentimental in the end, which I love. They never make him regress. We'll get there, but I love that he never regresses. He stays an asshole, but he never regresses into a bad person.
The perfect moment to talk about what you're saying is the kid falling out of the tree moment, because no matter how good he gets, when he yells at the kid, you've never said thank you, little brat.
Little brat.
See you tomorrow, maybe. Like he's still him.
Yeah.
He didn't lose
Yeah,
himself.
Yeah.
But he's good. Yeah.
But he doesn't
Yeah.
regress into a bad person again.
No.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad person. The
No.
kid is being a jerk.
Yeah.
He just saved his. Yeah. So I think the next thing we can talk about is pretty interesting because there could be a little bit of disagreement here. What's the lock-in moment?
Yes. That's what I
Should
wanted to
we talk about what a lock-in is?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times we talk about 3-act structure and all that, all that entails, and there's kind of a break into Act 2 moment or something. I like to think of the lock-in as it's the moment where the hero, the goal, and the obstacle and the stakes all show up that would be present in the log line. So we
It's a
know.
hard one for this.
Well,
Mhm.
there's a spot I think I
have my
point to.
guess, but
I always point
yeah.
to with this. So once the hero is kind of in the world and locked into it, so
Yeah.
to speak, and
the
there's no turning
overall
back.
story problem they have to fix. Yeah.
I think the only reason this one gets a little tricky is because the goal isn't. It's a wrong way goal.
Yeah, it's a wrong way goal.
And
You mean
which
the
you
funny
also
games
talked about.
part?
Yeah,
kinda?
we're
The
gonna
funny
get-
games.
we're
Yeah,
gonna get to
the
that.
funny
Yeah.
game. The reason I think this movie is so well loved by screenwriters is because it's one of the best movies. I know I'm mixing a bunch of.
Oh, it's
things
okay.
here.
Ton
Go
of
for
points.
it.
We'll
To-
hit them up. We'll hit
to
them all
me-
up. All the
To
talking
me,
points.
this movie lays the arc naked. It makes it part of the plot.
Yes.
So arc and plot are one almost in this movie, which is why I think it's so instructive to watch, because it shows you all the building blocks of an arc. This is a long lesson about why you shouldn't be selfish.
Yeah.
The whole movie's
From
a
the
lesson.
beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. The lesson
Like
starts right away.
Even like him being rotten is like, don't be this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no point.
And
Yeah.
all movies should be like this, but this one is easy to see.
It's overt.
You can see it. It's right there on the surface, where most movies hide it underneath.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to pick apart, and sometimes it's missing. Anyway, back to the lock-in. So my take on the lock-in is like the catalyst is his first repeat day. He's not sure if it repeats. But then when he does that pencil test,
Yeah.
I was gonna say the pencil.
that was,
I was gonna say the pencil. Yeah,
'cause
So
that
that
says
was my
this
question
is
to you
we're in the
guys.
time loop.
So
that's when his
That's-
fear. That's when he knows.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so here's my question though,
Yeah.
because I'm gonna compare what we talked about with Back to the Future. That's what I found interesting watching this. I was like, hang on,
Yeah.
because I'm with you guys. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But we know, for instance, in Back to the Future, Marty goes to 1955 in the DeLorean at 32 minutes. Okay, we know that he's stuck in the past and has to get back to the future.
Mhm.
We are locked in to the goal, those stakes, the obstacles, the urgency. Marty doesn't figure it out for another 12 minutes. So it's like 44 minutes before Marty is locked into the goal.
Are you saying Bill
But-
Murray doesn't figure
But
out?
what I'm saying is we know
He's going the opposite.
we
direction.
know at
Oh,
18
yeah.
minutes, at 18 minutes, where is it? We learned that he's stuck in this loop, and that's the problem these guys fix. But he has a whole sequence, just like Marty, before he figures it out, and that's like 26 minutes. So my thought is maybe the first act is only 18 minutes long, and that
Where would that end then?
that would end when he wakes up, and it's Groundhog Day.
First
again.
Groundhog Day.
That's
Really?
18 minutes. It
And you're
sets
saying
up
that you're
all
saying
that
that's
stuff.
the lock-in.
I'm saying that's when the audience knows he's stuck in the same day, and he has another sequence to figure that out. But for me, the upside down world starts right then when he wakes up and he walks down the hall, and the
See,
guy
okay,
asks him the same.
The only way
question.
I'd argue with on that is because the movie, which I'm assuming
Is
is
it
in the,
interesting?
it is interesting, but I'd argue because this has got to be in the script too, is that it goes a long way to show that he is not sure it's actually happening.
Right, but we know.
We do. We know it's happening, but you know what I mean? Like he's completely unsure that it's not
Right.
some type of weird dream that he had.
And the definitive is the pencil.
The pencil
snap, and
makes-
it comes back together.
This-
He
yeah.
knows he's locked.
That's
in.
the real for him.
I think Jimmy's point's interesting.
It is.
It
I'm
it
not
also
trying to discount it.
it also shows why all this stuff's in
It's
the eye of the
bullshit.
beholder. It's all bullshit.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say.
So don't listen to anything we say ever. is what
No,
you're saying.
that's what,
Just
so
kidding.
like they set up every single thing they need to set up about the world in 18 minutes. And like it's really fascinating. It's one of my favorite movies, and it's got a short first act one, whereas compared to we've been showing that you can have a really long first act and it works in your favor. It doesn't matter that it's not 25%. Here, I think the first act is 18 minutes long, and it does everything it needs to. And we're into act 2. We're into the opposite world, the upside down world, the same day again at 18 minutes, which I didn't expect, and I was like really surprised to see. And like you said, Jamie, it's bullshit.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The rules are bullshit. Another rule, this is bending and
Yeah.
showing what does it matter.
I guess it depends if you think the lock-in is based on the audience or the character.
Well,
right?
like I said, we were saying definitively, like Marty is the first act. Ends in Back to the Future when we know he's in the past, not when he knows. And if you're going to use that argument there, why wouldn't you use it here? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The only reason I think this is my gut why I feel this way, and it's very minor, is while we know we're discovering it.
Okay.
Whereas in that one we're already introduced to time travel.
Right.
And we definitely
Also,
know.
Marty,
yeah, it's
you know what
you're
I'm-
saying it's not definitive.
It's a discovery for us.
can I add to
too,
his? 'cause
even
I-
though we're recognizing
Yeah.
it. before
I'd add to
Bill Murray.
Jamie's by saying that Marty was introduced to the fact that was in fact a time machine. He knows there is a time element here,
Right.
Whereas
That's
Bill
right.
Murray literally just is thrown into
He's like,
this.
what the hell?
He has no clue what's driving this, what's happening. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's no precursor to this happening.
Yeah.
But
You
but
know?
that's why whenever you read somebody's structure, it's different because it's really what you feel or how you think
you
about
feel.
these things
Yeah.
and how it's instructive to you to write and things
Yeah.
like that. So, because it could go either way. I could
Yeah.
see your point.
Because all the repetitions start right after that. So we're seeing the fun and games right there.
Right.
Like we're seeing the promise of the premise delivery start at 18 minutes.
Right. And
So
what's interesting, and
You're
this,
right.
it's
this
just
is,
interesting.
you're absolutely
it's
right,
interesting.
yeah.
It's like
This-
an interesting weird thing
This
that
is-
works.
This is more inside baseball kind of stuff, and I see this all the time. Like when I go online and I look up a beat sheet, it might even be on Save the Cat's website, and I'll totally disagree with it. You know,
Yeah.
we'll read the same book,
This
and
is
we'll totally
bullshit.
disagree. But they might have Groundhog Day. Like the catalyst is when he shows up at the town or some thing.
really late.
And when I look at that, then there's no debate in this one because we skip to the part where I'm like, well, wait a minute, maybe you got the catalyst wrong, and that's where there's
The
kind of
catalyst
debates.
is Ned.
Yeah,
Like what?
So
it's all debatable.
yeah. So the debate, it's debatable.
And really, a lot of the stuff is meant to inspire you to pull a story out of you,
Absolutely.
and not as much to follow.
Yeah.
However, you kind of have to analyze things to figure out why it
resonated.
These blocks go. Yeah,
Right.
But there's no rules.
There's no rules, but I think it's really kind of inspiring that in 18 minutes we learn everything we need to.
Setup
the
is
rest
amazing.
Of it's an 18-minute setup.
Yeah,
It's
perfect.
like wow. Yeah.
And it's a perfect thing to walk us to the next question because notoriously, the original draft of this movie started with him already inside the time loop.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that. I think I've read the book, but I can't.
That was
so
that was Ramis' big change, right?
Yep. He was already in it like for 1,000 years
that
or
makes
something.
so
He was,
much
like,
sense.
trapped.
And if we're clear, on the commentary, he says it's about 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because some people were asking him, it was like 10,000
How
or
many
something.
years?
No,
Yeah.
It was 10. It was about 10-ish, a decade.
So it
He's trying
takes
to-
10 years for him
to learn
learn
something.
Learn
yeah.
the piano and
Yeah.
ice sculpting.
Right.
That's how long
Right.
it takes.
When you brought up that question, knowing that, it informs so much because I feel like he's a man who he's presented. I think it's pretty clear. I don't think this is like anything deep discovery. He's a guy who already feels trapped in the monotony of his loop. Like this is the 4th time he's been to Punxsutawney and he's like said out loud, this is his last time.
Yeah.
Like he's already broken from like the monotony of his life, right? So maybe that is because it started with him already in the time loop.
When I think about like what this movie would be like, it almost reminds me a little of like the Truman Show or something.
Yeah.
Where it's a character that's going through the motions or something.
Yeah.
It's like every example is a Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Comparatively.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. And then maybe something, I don't even know what the catalyst in that movie would be. Like what comes along that turns his life into new. So the setup of that movie would be a guy trapped in the same day. That would be his normal.
That would be his normal world.
So somebody must come along or some new idea must come along. Maybe I can escape or something or fall in love.
And
or
that's the
whatever.
the Tom Cruise that's
Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow. You
Yeah.
have somebody else who is also aware of the loop and experiencing the loop. That's what that would be. Something like that.
It's hard to imagine.
yeah.
I don't know
Which
if that
which
script
doesn't
is
seem
out there.
which
Seems
that
like it would
element
change that
doesn't
movie so much.
because this movie, while we're not talking about magic right now, that wouldn't work for this movie.
Not at all.
It has to be
it's
personal
just
to
about
him.
Phil.
Yeah, it has to be just about Phil.
Phil's-
So bringing in a separate element doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
how do you make it work?
I would imagine
Yeah.
you'd set the character up almost being in his most I am a god mode already, because if he was alive for 1,000 years, like he's just enjoying it and doing the thing, but then somehow he realizes there's more to life and sets out on a journey to I don't know what it would be.
Maybe something.
It might be in that book. I
Yeah.
can't remember. It's been,
it's been a while.
about 6 or 7
Yeah.
years since I read it.
Yeah.
It seems like a very different movie. That probably
It's so interesting
that
it
probably
started
went
that way.
along with the dark draft. That was the dark draft,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Which delved really much more deeper into the horrible things he did. I read on the internet. I just read stuff that apparently it involved murder and torture.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Like he went.
So
really
it wasn't
dark.
a comedy.
Yeah, like it was a
was a
lot.
drama.
Well, if you take a human and you take it, the movie's about consequences, right?
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
and it's like, what if you remove consequences from a human being?
Mm-hmm.
So that apparently was touched on. They explored that.
Whiteboarded that.
They whiteboards up on top of whiteboards. Yeah.
I'm gonna go off tonight and write Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer meets Groundhog Day.
Oh my God, that sounds.
What if Henry?
depressing.
What if Henry gets trapped in the time loop?
Learns to stop killing people.
Or like Jason.
Jason, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
And what if it cures Jason? What if he eventually gets bored and then learns to do something?
learns to be good.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
That would
But
be-
it's interesting to know that's out there, that there's a draft where you would actually have Phil doing horrible things.
which are hinted at later. I've been stabbed.
There's no,
I've been-
but how could you redeem that? Though?
yeah, you couldn't.
You couldn't. Like
No.
he only grazes the line here,
Yeah,
you know, and he only hurts himself.
Mhm.
it would be a complete tonal imbalance. It would just
Like the dating stuff is just towing the line.
and it doesn't age well.
No, it doesn't. But the fact that the kind of the magic explains it away.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he's aware that it's not going to hurt anybody.
Right.
So it's like,
yeah,
it's
so
a weird.
gross.
It's
yeah.
but it's a moral like thing. Like if you're writing morality and you have like an out like that, it's what do you do?
Yeah.
You know?
It's
How far do you explore?
Because he's
that?
not. These people are not humans anymore. Right?
Yeah, it's almost like a simulation.
It's just, he's like in
like
a
I'm in a VR world.
right.
Yeah.
Like he knows he can do anything.
It
and
does
and
feel Truman Show-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that way, when you describe it like that.
He's like, my actions do not affect them, so I can do anything I want. I just have to get the result. He's playing a video game, right?
Until he realizes that they're all people.
That they're all actual people and stuff.
Starts to actually have empathy and care about them. And yeah.
I'm not saying I'd want to see the Dark Draft. I'm just saying that
it
apparently
it
did
was
exist.
There. That's so weird.
Yeah, like who the hell would he murder? Like, okay,
Ned.
Yeah, right.
Chevy Chase.
I feel like we touched on this already, but character flaws and arcs.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing, this movie really, it's kind of easy to narrow down what it's about, I think.
Yeah.
It's really about selfishness.
Yeah.
And then becoming the opposite of
selfless.
that. Becoming selfless.
So I read that Stephen Tobolowsky, the actor that played Ned Ryerson, he said that he was kind of stating the theme of the movie, and he's like, serve others.
Serve others, yeah.
That was kind of the theme.
Yeah.
I think it's that kind of very simple. A person goes from completely the worst selfish person that everything's about them,
self-serving,
and to turning into the exact opposite, like everything's about everyone else.
He the writer answered it for us, and that's always
oh really
when that happens. It's like, oh well, that's easy.
I remember reading
Danny Rubin.
No, I'm not reading it was the video series. What's that video series that's really interesting that we
Lessons from the Screenplay. They have a great episode on this. It's about premise delivery. That's why I didn't put it on the talking points.
Okay.
It's like 20 minutes of premise delivery.
So go watch that. Is that on YouTube or
Lessons
something?
From the Screenplay, it's fantastic.
I showed that to my class years ago. I used to do a script analysis class, and this was one of the ones. And I remember showing that to him. And the only thing I remember, and I love all those videos, but the only thing I remember about it was the movie constantly attacks the flaw. And I remember that stuck with me because when I build arcs into my screenplays...
You mean Phil's flaw?
Phil's flaw.
Okay.
So they construct a world that constantly attacks the hero's flaw.
In every way, shape, or form.
And I think
like
that...
Punxsutawney is his hell.
Yes.
For his flaw.
It's almost
for
like...
his flaw, right.
So here's how I took that. When I heard that, and when I read the script, and when I did this analysis, when I set about coming up with stories... I like to think of myself as God trying to change somebody from
now we know why Jamie writes.
Yeah, trying to change somebody from bad to good through some encounter that constantly attacks their flaw. And if you think about it in those terms, you can truly change someone, being the character, from one thing to another by the end. And I think that's really instructive little nugget. If you can create your world, your plot, so it's constantly attacking your hero's flaw, that's really what character arcs, transformation, storytelling.
Every Jim Carrey movie you just said is like that exact thing too.
Yeah. And it's harder to see on like more I don't know, mini plot movies, more complex movies even. These are kind of simple stories, they're simple comedies in some ways. Not to be pejorative at all. I think it's a great movie. But you see, it's harder to see in those, but it's still there. So I think if you can think in those terms, it's helpful. It's a helpful mindset.
I always ask the question, how could the worst thing that ever happened to my character become the best thing that ever happened to my character, when you're trying to figure out what that flaw is?
Yeah.
And if you can have a setting that answers that question perfectly, it takes care of itself.
A lawyer can't lie.
Yeah.
That's right. It's
done. The interesting thing on Groundhog Day, on the surface, there's nothing about repeating days that speak to selfishness.
That's true.
So there's nurturing work. Like, it's not conceptually automatically there. Because immediately if I thought of repeating days, I might think somebody that is impatient or something. There might be another flaw. Like if I did concept first and then flaw, I might think of another flaw.
It's more just like
that's true.
The punishment of his flaw.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
he's just getting punished until you're stuck. You're being put in a corner until you figure it out. That it's not directly related, but it's like
it's almost like he'll get bored of his selfishness if he gets too much of it.
he'll realize this goes nowhere.
Yeah, if he's just completely greedy, unchecked, eventually he'll get his fill and realize there's more to life. Kind of.
Yeah.
Thing. Yeah.
I wrote down later when you're talking about the magic, but it relates to that. He's like stuck with he has a choice: eternal stagnation or eternal growth.
Yeah.
And then he learns that, I can get to the next day if I grow. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Try to grow.
Right.
Yeah.
I got something really interesting I want to talk about with magic too.
Okay.
The magic thing's an interesting one.
Yeah, I put it at the end, but
Why don't we jump into it now?
let's jump into it now.
Okay, so let's talk about the obvious. Is that it doesn't say what's happening.
Right.
The movie, we called it. I think in the end game was it? We called double mumbo jumbo with magic or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
this doesn't give us any reason for anything.
Double mumbo jumbo is usually when there's two, and this has none.
This has none.
Yeah.
It has
two.
I'm saying it
two
doesn't
things.
have that. There's nobody like he doesn't find it. He doesn't even guess. Phil never asks why.
So there was a
Yeah.
draft, and it's online. I've read the draft.
Oh, really? Okay.
Where there was magic. He had an ex-girlfriend, and she does a little spell.
Yeah.
Oh,
pisses
really?
her off.
And then when she does the spell, the clouds come in, the snow, and all that stuff, and it's all based on something. He like a jilted
An act
ex
he did.
who
I don't like
cast
that.
the hex.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
awful.
surprised you never heard this.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
No.
So and that draft is actually online. I think it
I
went.
didn't read the book.
I
Yeah.
think that draft went almost to the end. Like I've even heard people say they shot that scene, but I don't think that's true. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm saying I don't think it's true.
The famous thing about this movie is that like it's been adopted by several religions as a
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
and Hal Ramis loved that,
Right.
but doesn't have any religious intention.
Because there's no setup for the magic that involves a specific religious, like a deity or anything.
But
like
it
that.
does seem coming from something like that.
From a
Like
higher
God
power.
is doing this to Phil.
Yeah.
And I always like the fact that in the context of the movie, like, is this happening to other people? Is
Yeah.
God constantly resetting the universe to teach a lesson to somebody else after he fixes one life and he does it again? You know,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a really interesting thing.
I think what's interesting about not explaining it breaks. These are more conventions it breaks. What's the deadline?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Back to the Future, we have
We
all
have
these deadlines
defined. Yeah.
right? Here we have a time. It plays with time, but there's no deadline. And oddly enough, the threat of eternity becomes a ticking clock. It like creates urgency. He's got to get out of this because otherwise he'll be stuck for eternity. So this lack of a deadline creates this intense urgency to get out of it. And then what are the stakes? His soul?
Well, I
His
think
sanity?
Yeah,
I think
because
this-
he would literally never die.
Yeah, I think the
So-
stakes are being trapped here forever, never moving
Eternity.
forward. Yeah.
Eternal stagnation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
It's kind of
stuck.
It's kind of a
Yeah.
prison
A
in some
prison
ways.
of the same day. That's good.
Yeah.
So it's like imprisonment stakes.
Yeah. Now, here's the weird part of it.
Imprisonment.
This
That's
is to your point, and I don't really have a good answer for this, but for me, I always say that tension is the thing that drives us in movies. So it's usually we're like feeling anxiety for the hero, or we're feeling hope versus anxiety. But in this case, he doesn't really care through the first
For
half.
the first
of it.
half. Yeah.
Until the suicide
It's
starts.
more
right?
like, let me experiment in
Yeah.
this new weird world I'm in
fun and games.
and see what it's like. He doesn't really have any urgency to leave or anything. So
I mean, the day he decides that he could do whatever he wants, and it's like the pinnacle of like selfish ambition, he's excited. He wakes up singing. He's like yells like, "Yes!
And
It's a cold
I'm not
day!"
gonna listen to their
Yeah,
rules
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Right?
I
Yeah.
guess the tension there, I'm kind of riffing here, is probably generated from wrong way goals, and that we, the audience, know
Mhm.
that this is a trap and this is a prison. And as much as he's trying to make the best
So
of it,
we feel the tension.
We feel
'cause
it.
we
We-
know the lesson.
we
by
know
this point.
we know he's not going to get out of it the way he's doing it. We
So to
know-
explain wrong way goals, since we're getting into it, wrong way goal is like Liar Liar's a great. It's funny that we're going to Jim Carrey again, but Liar Liar is a great example. Jim Carrey thinks that in order to gain the love of his son, he needs to lie because that's how he's gotten everything in his life. And even when he can't tell a lie, he still tries. He's
Yeah,
going the
right.
wrong way. My best friend's wedding. she thinks that the solution is to sabotage the wedding, and we know that she needs to learn the lesson to accept the circumstances and be supportive of her friend. So the entire movie, she's going the wrong way, and we're rooting for her to get back on track and get the goal right. Toy Story 4 we just did. Woody is chasing after Forky because he wants to get him back to Bonnie, but Forky doesn't want to be with Bonnie, and like Woody doesn't even have a chance to earn the love of Bonnie the way he did with Andy. So what he needs to learn the lesson is be with Bo Peep, be this free toy who's not beholden to any kid. And so with this movie,
is it kind of a learn? You don't have to go back home.
There's,
you know what I mean?
I think it probably depends on the plot, but
but I'm using that as a generalization. Like this is not what you had is not what you need anymore.
The selfishness. So he's trying to sleep with Rita. That's like it. He thinks his solution, I'm just going to keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. And the entire time we know that the lesson, so you're saying the tension is built off of us being like, don't do it.
Yeah, the tension is
over
enough.
and over again.
I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think
you're right. So that's
the one thing and that goes into what I kind of this weird thing. I don't know if you guys don't respond to this, that's okay. But whenever I watch this movie, I always view Rita as, I'm going to just say this, the voice of the universe in this movie. Like he has no contact to anything going on, but it seems to me that the one thing that is like definitive of what he has to do is Rita.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that's the only thing he is, because he can't snake his way into her life.
Right,
it won't work. Like, and she knows it. Like she is not attracted to fake.
Yeah,
he has to be real and really believe it and have warmth. And she's his only like clue. His only thing he can.
She's the lesson character.
Yeah,
there's two.
Yeah.
I don't know what the old man story says, but he's also a lesson. I think he's a lesson of control. There's an element of control.
He cannot be saved.
But also it's Phil wants to control everything. Like the whole first half of the movie is about him kind of trying to control every single human in the town. He thinks he can control the weather, and that's why he says, I'm God. And then he learns from the old man story that he's not God. He can't control what's going to happen to people.
On the IMDb trivia, apparently in that scene, it cuts before this happens, but he does look up at the sky and says something. It is not said what he says, but it was cut.
I like that, leaving it up to interpretation.
Sure, but it's interesting to think that
they defined it.
That maybe Phil might have tried to talk to God.
Yeah,
and been like, why can't I do this? For this old man. Because you got to imagine that once we get to the good days, at this point, what does he do? Does he let that man I always wondered if he goes back and he gives him money and stuff,
right?
So that his last day would be good,
right?
Or does he just like, I can't?
I think he probably still gives
him the money, but
cheers him up.
But he doesn't take him to like the hospital and stuff.
No,
yeah. It's interesting. I don't know.
It is interesting.
But the complete lack of like Phil questioning things is something I always found interesting. He doesn't say like, who's doing
why
this?
Are you doing
what do you
this?
want from me?
But we're asking why, and the theme teaches us, and the arc teaches us the why. It's very
But it's instructive, like as a character too, right? Like Phil's not the kind of guy to go, "What do you want from me?"
No,
he just accepts the situation and then tries to murder himself
over and over,
right? We talked wrong way tactics and the power of repetition. We talked about that.
So I had said on the we introduced. The first time I brought up repetition was Dr. Sleep, and I had said on that podcast that I thought it had more repetition than I had ever seen in a movie, and I was wrong. So like the easiest way, I love repetition. I use it a lot, and it's funny. In looking back and reading some of like the more famous reviews of this movie, which I did, some of the people were stating like, you never want to do repetition in a movie, and this movie shows that that's not true. And I'm like, what? Like what are you talking
about? That's how jokes work.
Yeah.
Number one. Yeah.
So like
I always wondered too. Seems like it makes production so much easier. Just shoot out the 5 scenes.
All the Gobbler's Knobs is probably 2 days.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All the dating stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how I will write a lot of my scripts. I'll write a singular part of the story, the beginning, middle, and end repetition of a single beat, like story thread. But like the easiest way to bond the audience with a character is repetition. And this movie is like the perfect example of like executing that to an extreme. Like once we see them respond to a situation for a second, third time, it like shows us how they're changing because we have some context to how they were before. It's like so easy, so simple. And I just think if you're looking to learn how to use repetition well, this is like the perfect example. Repetition, the movie.
Yeah, Bob and I were even talking earlier about the whiteboard aspect of it, and I think that goes to the repetition.
It does, because I was saying, number one, you got the whiteboard for the premise,
right?
Which is one there, but then it's like everything that he does in the movie because of the premise is another whiteboard.
Right, its own thing.
What if you wanted to date a woman with this happening to you?
Yeah,
here's what you would do.
How many different things could you do?
Yeah.
Right.
You got the Nancy whiteboard.
How
you got
could
the
you
Ned Ryerson whiteboard?
How could you kill yourself?
Yep.
What might work? What might not?
Yep.
Like all the different.
You got the broadcast whiteboard. All the various ways he would give the broadcast, and how do you show growth through that? You start him out like thinking it's a joke, and in the middle of it, he says to the camera like it's gonna be cold, it's gonna be dark, and it's gonna last the rest of your life. And then in the end, he says like he couldn't think of a better place to spend the rest of his days than Punxsutawney. Like he's quoting poetry and.
The setups and payoffs are masterful.
Yeah.
They really are.
But what's interesting is, unlike other movies that may have a 3 beats, the beginning, middle, end, this has 7, 8, 9 of each of the threads.
Yeah.
Like I don't have the number of times he records the broadcast, but I'd say it's got to be at least 8. Like, and all the threads are like that. How many times does he encounter Ned Ryerson? I think I called him Flanders earlier.
Flanders.
But it's just this movie uses repetition more than any movie I've ever seen.
There's also like little ones in there, like like the Jeopardy scene. Like, what would happen if you did this and you watch TV every night? It's the same thing. So, it's just like great freaking whiteboard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
premise delivery.
It's so super premise delivery. Can you even think of a movie that does premise delivery better? I mean,
we've talked about some good ones.
We have.
Bill and Ted's is pretty stellar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the next one was we talked about magic.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything.
All the stuff we wanted to cover.
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing I didn't write on here was how well this story uses supporting characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it reminded me of Good Boys in that way. Like, the off-screen movie for each character that comes on screen, they all have like agendas and these lives. Like Ned Ryerson is fucking driven to get that insurance, and like when he finally gets the insurance, he says, "This is the best day of my life."
Right.
The couple that gets married and they go to WrestleMania, and then like there's that moment.
Michael Shannon's first movie.
Michael Shannon. Right. There's that moment where the bride kisses Bill Murray, so then Michael Shannon kisses Rita, and like they have this moment of jealousy, and there's this whole story that's gonna happen after that. Everybody. Chris Elliott
has this whole side thing going on.
It takes the characters and it ups the ante and gives them their own worlds that they're trying to like. It's just a great example.
It's one interesting thing that came to mind with this movie is, I guess it's an out of the bottle story, Blake Snyder. But it also feels sometimes like a monster in that, not monster in the house, but it's such a trap.
Time is
trying to escape.
Yeah,
like
time's
a
the
monster.
Absolutely, it's a monster movie.
It's a monster movie.
Well, the reason it's like the reason I think a monster in the house for this, and again, it's almost the quintessential out of the bottle story. But think of it this way: it has a sin, the selfishness in general. There's a reason this happens. Has a monster, it's kind of time in the loop. The monster is the only thing that might be a little iffy in it. But it also even has things like the house is actually the time loop. But it also has things like a half man, like the old guy is almost like a half man in some weird sort of way.
I mean, the old man is the glimpse of the future.
He's the one who knows how to escape.
That's
actually dying.
Right.
That's the Christmas Carol there. He's looking in the mirror of his future.
Yeah.
You're gonna die cold and alone and unremembered, just like she said in the poem.
It's kind of my thing where I feel like every movie's a horror movie in some ways.
It
every
goes
movie
to your
in some
point
ways
there.
is a horror movie.
Yeah.
I think that goes to like Spielberg movies.
Yeah,
he's a horror director first, and that's why all of his movies were great, because he was making even like family films as horror movies. Yeah. I was gonna say the one thing about this movie with the supporting characters too.
Yeah.
Is that juggling the way you write your supporting characters when you have to keep in your mind that they're experiencing one day.
Yeah.
Like the last day before it all resolves itself, it's crazy to think what Rita actually thinks
Yeah.
of the guy that she met
Yeah.
the
it's
day
It's
before.
a bit of an implausible
But she has,
leap
but
from,
no, but
from the guy at the station who's hitting on her and being gross, and
but she gets so much. There's so much proof that he's not the guy
That's
that she
true.
thought he was.
yeah,
Because the movie goes to extent in that last day.
yeah,
Like, okay, this guy is not who I pegged him as.
yeah, exactly.
I must have been misreading him.
Yeah,
But it's funny to think of that. You know what I mean? Like how these characters respond to him. Even Puxatawny, they're like,
yeah.
how does he become that famous in one day? In the time span of a day. Yeah. It's just it's something that I guess you're not supposed to deep dive on, but I've always thought about that. I'm like, man, these people, like, do they ever question who this guy really is? Who the fuck is this dude? It's been a day. I guess he won him over though with the speech, so it counts.
Yeah,
The speech
from the start.
Well, no, he does that speech, and then everyone's like in love with him.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
At the big reveal at 7-something a.m., he's doing. Everybody's falling.
I always also found him reading at the diner.
Mm-hmm.
That one scene where he's reading. I'm like, man, so it's not just saying serve others. You're supposed to improve yourself.
So that's what. Okay,
Self-improvement.
I forgot to comment to ask you guys about this.
Yeah.
I do think it's pretty clean cut, selfish arc.
Yeah.
But there is an element of him. I mean, it's cliche, but like, in order to love others, you have to love yourself. There's definitely an element of self-hatred, and it takes us through that to the point that he's trying to kill himself over and over and over. I mean, that is the ultimate expression of self-hatred.
Mm-hmm.
And then I almost feel like he loves himself, you know, by the end. He likes who he is. He says like 3 times in the movie, I suck. I'm a jerk. Like, I hate me too. Like, you know what I mean? And by the end, it feels like he's like
also being
comfortable
arrogant
in his own skin.
He hates himself and he's arrogant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a weird combination.
It's very.
But I feel like it's there.
Yeah.
It's,
Well, I think that's what makes the movie so great. Is it might be about selfish or something, like being selfish to unselfish. And a lot of movies might just hit one moment of grace or something like that. But this movie shows a true journey through the whole thing, because the whole movie's about that. You know, because
from the beginning to the end.
that's the thing. It's a nuanced lesson learned. You know, it's not just like one beat and then they change. And that's the real instructive thing about this. The more you can do that with your own scripts, the better. You know, the better.
Right.
The more it's going to land. It's earning your arc.
Yeah.
As opposed to just writing your
We
arc.
watch all the growing pains. I mean, every moment is a growing pain.
That's why the original draft seems insane. Why? How could that work?
Yeah, and there's
You know
a
what I
lot
mean?
of
That
other
does
weird
seem
stuff in the
insane.
original draft. There's voiceover, and there's voiceover
Oh,
in
that's
the
right,
end
voiceover.
talking about the
Mhm.
power of love, and Phil voiceover.
I think somebody should reboot it and make that movie.
Just
as an
just call it
experiment.
Groundhog Day
Also,
first draft.
Gus
Once
Van
again,
Sant.
the power of rewriting. These
Yeah,
things
yeah.
don't start as masterpieces. They take years of recrafting and reshaping and tweaking to reach this point where we're like, that's a classic.
Yeah, Back to the Future would have been ending.
Oh my
at,
God, the first
a refrigerator
thing we talked
in
about.
a nuclear power plant or whatever. Yeah, with a monkey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a completely different movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what did we learn from Groundhog Day this time? Let's revisit.
I learned that you can have, even though we didn't make it definitive, because it's not definitive, that you can have an 18-minute first act and set up everything you need to, and you can come away with one of the best movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the lesson I've taken from this one, you know, for years is the attack the flaw, the plot. Construct a plot to attack the flaw as a writer.
That was gonna be mine.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, no, that's. I think I'm just gonna go with that because I don't think I've ever heard that put into words like that. You know, and that's one of the most instructive things I've ever heard.
Yeah.
For as writing a character, like attack the flaw.
Yeah, over and over and over in as many ways as possible.
Yeah.
Again, I'll plug lessons from the screenplay because I think that's where
That's
I
a
heard
great
that.
video.
Yeah.
It's a good video.
Yeah, and his Danny Rubin's book about the writing of this.
Danny
You guys
Rubin's
don't know the title of that?
I think it's How to Write Groundhog
I
Day.
think it's
I
How
think
to Write
that's what it's
Groundhog
called.
Day. I think that's what
Yeah.
it's called. Yeah, it's $5 on Amazon. It's an ebook.
Maybe the fact that he hasn't had the same type of success since is because of that first draft.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Like that's
Maybe that's telling.
without Howard Ramis, that first draft might, Who knows what that movie would be?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's a collaboration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a collaborative art.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. All right. I think that's it, guys.
Thanks
right?
for listening, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And you can email us if you.
Oh, yeah. You
right?
got any questions, comments? WritersBlockbustersPodcast@gmail.com.
Or tweet us.
Tweet us.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
You have just listened to Writers Blockbusters, a screenwriting podcast featuring two professionals and another guy. Available only on Thundergrunt.